Are you happy to have some cider?
I'm Greg.
I'm Julie, and we're the Crafty Winers.
So we're doing a cider flavoring today. This takes up where our base hard apple cider recipe left off. And we will link that above so you can watch it, because this video will make 0 sense if you haven't watched that one already beforehand. It left the cider at a certain pH, which I think was about 3.8. Did not have any flavoring in it, but it had potassium sorbate in it to make the yeast not able to start a new fermentation. What we want to do with this hopped cider, we want it to have a good amount of apple flavor, a little bit of sweetness. We don't want it 100% dry. And then we're going to add hops. So to get that little bit of sweet and good flavor, we're going to add a concentrate container. This is 12 ounces of great value apple juice, but it could be any brand of apple juice concentrate.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that this is mostly thawed. It's been sitting in front of a heater. And if not, there are microwave instructions on it, so
Might be. Well, it looks good.
it's mostly thawed. So I'm going to squeeze it so that it doesn't splash as bad.
Remember, they used to make those with the metal. They were in the cardboard, and you had to tear off the cardboard, and it had metal on both ends. You couldn't put that in the microwave.
You could, but it wouldn't be good.
So it's kind of handy that you can do that.
So that gives us our sweetness. I'm going to stir it up a little, even though I'm not really needing to, because I'm going to stir it up quite a few more times. There is a little bit of sediment at the bottom of this, just because this has been sitting for a few weeks. And that doesn't matter, because part of this process is going to be to cold crash it. So I wouldn't worry about the sediment now. So now we want to put some hops in this. We don't like our hopped ciders to be really hoppy. Maybe you do, but we like just kind of a hint of hops. So what we normally like to do is 1/2 ounce of hops for about a week. But at like 6 days we'll start tasting it, and then every 3 days we'll taste it again until it has the hoppiness that we like. So I put my little infuser on here on my mini scale, which I'll link in the description below. I hit tare so that it takes out the weight of the infuser. And then I'm looking for 1/2 ounce, 0.5.
You dropped one. There's a stray hop pellet.
Hop.
It hopped.
So,
It hopped out.
So hop and a skip. The hop skipped. Okay, it's 0.54. It's close enough. So, very important. If you put this in here right now, very good chance that you're going to start a fermentation back up again. And you're going to say, how can you do that when you put sorbate in it? It's because there's probably yeast in your hops. And it's new yeast that hasn't been sorbated. So we've had it happen before, I'm embarrassed to say. We've had a nice batch of hopped cider start fermenting again. And then it turned into this weird mass because the fermentation turned this into dust, and it was all over it was a mess.
We salvaged it, though, and it actually turned out good.
Well, yeah, we salvaged it, and we liked it better than what we had done in previous versions. So we had to try to figure out why it was better, and we did end up figuring out why it was better. But so what you want to do is take your infuser and put it in the oven for about 10 minutes at 225. And my oven is already preheated, so I'm going to put this in there, and we'll be back. If it didn't smell like hops before, after 10 minutes at 225 in the oven, it really smells like hops in this room.
Yes, it does.
So yes, that 225 for 10 minutes kills the yeast that is on the hops. And there are almost for sure going to be yeast on the hops, unless the producer of the hops sterilized the yeast. So now that that's done, I'm putting my very warm hopped container into my 1-gallon vessel. And we are going to let this sit in here for about a week, probably 6 to 7 days before we taste it, just because we know that it needs at least that long. What are you barking at? Is it dinner time?
That was her. That was Nori.
Is it dinner time?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is dinner time.
Got a couple more videos to do, then you can have dinner, and we can have dinner.
Yeah. She says, yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay, so we will be back after about 6 to 7 days to see how it tastes at that point.
And we're back.
We predicted like 7 days, and it ended up being about 9 days. We tasted this a couple of days ago, and it was good. And I put it back in the fridge because it wasn't a filming day, so it's had a couple more days in there. But so this is also cold crashed.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it's clear, but there's some sediment at the bottom, which is fine because so the next step, we're going to taste this again for you so that we can describe how it tastes. But the very last step here for us is to carbonate this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll leave this in the fridge for a couple more days just to make sure that all the sediment that can be at the bottom is at the bottom. And then I'm going to rack this into our carbonator and force carbonate it. This particular cider you cannot naturally carbonate, unfortunately. If you're going to want it carbonated, you're going to have to force carbonate it or you're going to change it. When you naturally carbonate it, it's going to take the apple juice that we put in there to add flavor and ferment the sugar that's in that into alcohol, so it's going to make it more alcohol and less sugar and again less flavor.
If you wanted, people do like dry ciders too. So if you wanted a dry cider, you didn't want to put the juice back in, you could do that,
Even
and
if
then you
wanted to
could
put the
naturally,
juice. You've got to put sugar back into it to naturally carbonate
but just a
it.
little usually.
We have done experiments now. You can get away with putting probably a full can of that concentrate in and using that as the sugar to
priming.
naturally carbonate, but it's going to be very carbonated, and I'm going to say that there is a little risk of your bottle getting too much CO2 and possibly blowing up. We've done it with 3/4 of a can of concentrate. I haven't done a full can yet, which is what we put in here. We will have to try that just to see how it does. It's easy enough to try it.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be okay, but I would definitely use a bunker or put the bottle,
Yes.
the PET, the plastic carbonated bottle, someplace where if it does blow or the cap blows off or it starts leaking, it's not going to do damage to anything.
All right.
We put it in a tote.
We call it our bunker.
One that came from Lowe's or something.
Yeah.
It's just it's a storage tote, and we haven't had one blow up.
No, we haven't.
But if it did blow up, that would contain most of the liquid, and there's not going to be any glass because it's a plastic bottle. But we do have a forced carbonating video. It's the equipment to do the forced carbonation is not very expensive. It's when I did it, it was less than $100, and that will give you all of the equipment that you need to do as many forced carbonations as you want for the rest of your life, unless something breaks. So
And that's how we do most of our ciders.
we've gotten, I mean, how many
lemonades.
gallons and gallons and gallons have we gotten out of that $100 setup? So once you have that, you can carbonate anything. I mean, you can carbonate water. So
Or what was it we did on our video? It's like
no, it was an energy drink or a
body light,
yeah,
body armor light.
or something. So yeah, the natural carbonation you have to do it just right. Forced carbonation you can do anything. So all of that to say, you do want to force carbonate this if you want it to come out like ours, because ours is designed to be. It's got this right now has sugar and apple juice in it. If you naturally carbonate it, that's going to go away. Let's check the pH first, and then let's taste it. We want the pH to be around 3.8 just for shelf stability. 3.8 or lower. And if it's not, we're going to need to add to it or decide that we're just going to be fine with how it is now and drink it fast
You know,
enough.
this is my favorite cider. Well, second favorite cider after the huckleberry. So it's not going to sit around for very long.
Okay, well, the bad news is it's 4.10, so it's quite
my.
high. I'm going to give it a second here to make sure that that's the final answer. 4.08. So
It's higher than I expected it to.
4.07 is where it stopped. Let's take the infuser out. We know we're done with the hops.
Yep.
You can tip these infusers to get all of the hop juice out because the juice that's in there with the hops is probably a lot stronger tasting than what's out here. I don't want to change the taste of this much though at this point because we like the way that it is. So let me write on here that it was 4.08. So the acid that you want to put into apple cider
It's
is
malic acid.
I wouldn't suggest putting any other ones unless you're intentionally wanting to change that
The
base
taste.
acid flavor. Should we put 1/4 in? and then taste it, or do you want to taste it now and then see how we messed it up by putting in the malic?
Let's taste it.
We have ruined drinks. Ruin might be too strong of a word. We've made them a lot less desirable
Worse. Yeah.
by putting too much acid in, just to try to follow the rule of getting them down to 3.8.
Well, that's pretty good.
It'll be better when it's carbonated.
Oh, yeah.
Carbonation adds a little bit of bitterness, which is actually a good thing on a lot of ciders.
Especially with the hops, too. It's a good addition. I like it.
That's, for me, I wouldn't want any more hops in there than what's in there for sure. It's hoppy. It's a little hoppier than it was when we tasted it a couple of days ago.
You're the one who likes
I like
IPAs.
IPAs, but I don't necessarily like the hops in my cider.
I really like it. It could be hoppier for me.
Okay.
But I like it this way.
So I'm going to grab malic and the stuff that we need to lower this a little, and we'll do maybe a...
That's a long way if you're wanting to get it all the way to 3.8.
We'll need a half a teaspoon of malic if we're going to get down to 3.8.
Mm-hmm.
So she might shoot me because it might change it, but we'll be able to show you guys what not to do. The thing with not adjusting the pH down to 3.8 is I feel like you almost need to put some kind of indication on the label that it needs to be drunk, within a couple of months. And who wants to have to do that and track those bottles? We probably have 300 bottles right now of various ciders, lemonades,
Easily.
and beer bottles. And they're all over the place. Some of them are in the fridge. Some of them are not. They're just in boxes.
We don't have enough space for all of them.
So it's better to have everything shelf-stable for us, unless it's a white wine. And those we track a lot closer.
And we keep them refrigerated.
They're either in the fridge or in the 55-degree storage room.
Yep.
And we're not as worried about those. And we know when they were born. Of course, we do on the ciders too. So this is a light half
It's a little
teaspoon,
less, yeah.
intentionally. And again, the danger here is just making it too acidic.
Mm.
Malic acid is the acid that is in apples. So it's a taste that you're going to expect to be there, but we just don't want there to be too much of it. Because again, she likes this the way that it is now, and I'm okay with it. I think it's on the hoppy side for me. But
I like it.
I'm trying to not drink anything but red wine right now for my diet, and so it doesn't really matter what I want. She'll be the one drinking it. Her and our adult kids.
Yeah, well, now that you stopped drinking the cider, I have a backlog of cider I've got to get through.
Sorry.
I'm not complaining, it's good. Ooh, it's swirling.
Any of the stuff that was settled at the bottom is no longer at the bottom.
That's okay.
But I'll keep this in the fridge for another 3 days before I rack it into the carbonator, so we'll get rid of that sediment again. You can oxygenate your brew, your wine, or even your cider, probably. Cider's a little harder, I think, to over-oxygenate, but other than that, you can't rack too many times. You just need to be careful to not introduce too much oxygen. So anytime you see sediment down at the bottom before you bottle, feel free to rack it again. Sometimes I do it 3 or 4 times.
Yep.
Okay.
Here's the glass.
Oh, I need to do meter.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get the spoon.
I thought you were going to need the spoon.
It only went down to 4.01.
That's not
so
much.
I'm hoping that it just isn't, I didn't stir it up enough.
That was almost a half teaspoon.
If it still doesn't go down much, we'll have to put a little more in, unfortunately. 3.98. Do you want to taste it before I put more in it and make sure it's not deviating too much?
Yeah, maybe.
Before we did the hops, the base cider that we left off with in our make cider recipe did stop at 3.8. So from
the hops did it.
This was, I'm going to say probably mostly the hops. It was 3.8 and it sat for a month and a half, basically, and then it got to 4. So
of course we added the juice also.
We added the juice, but juice should be lower, but zing.
Yeah, I don't know that I want more zing than that.
Okay, well, Viewers can make up their mind whether or not they want to go down to 3.8 again. I agree. I can taste the zing already. I can taste the acid that wasn't there in the first drink. And it's not unpleasant. But I think more of it might be unpleasant.
Yeah, I think so.
So we are going to stop ours at 3.98.
And ours is going to stay in the fridge. It will stay in the fridge.
And we'll just,
it will be
we'll
drank.
just have to. And so this is the advantage you as a home brewer has over a commercial brewer that's making ciders, is that you don't have to make it shelf stable if you want to, if it's going to make it taste worse. And I think a lot of the ciders that you buy are, and they're way over acidic. And I can only drink like half of one before I have heartburn.
It's heartburn
because of the amount of acid that they have to put into it to make it shelf stable.
Yeah.
You as a home brewer don't have that. There's no rule saying that you've got to do that. So you just have to make sure that if you give it to somebody, they're aware that, hey, this may not be good for it. Don't
drink it.
don't try to leave it on your shelf for a year because it's going to go bad.
Yeah.
In your fridge for a year, probably okay, but it's going to be hit and miss if you have it at room temperature or hotter for a year.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to leave ours at a high pH just because we like the taste better. And you guys can decide if you want to take it down to the 3.8 that is advisable when you make yours.
So then we are going to carbonate this.
I'm going to put it in the fridge for 3 days to cold crash at about 40 degrees. And then it's going to go into our carbonator, and I'll carbonate it at 32 psi for 45 minutes, and then it sits overnight.
So yeah, we are going to carbonate this next, and we're not going to come back on camera because we've tasted this 100 times, and it's actually one of my favorite ciders, and it tastes amazing carbonated, so just trust us that it tastes amazing carbonated, and actually doesn't taste bad still, honestly. So if you didn't want to carbonate it, you could leave it still. It's yummy. Thank you guys once again for watching one of our videos. Please try this recipe. If you like hops, you'll love it. If you don't like hops, give it to somebody else. And leave us comments, ask questions, we will respond to you. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And if you have, thank you very much for your support. Until next time, cheers.